Hello, welcome to this channel. If you just joined me here, okay, I'm coming. Hello. Um, if you just joined me here, the main reason for this training session is to teach you about how to apply for the Canadian permanent residence. And so to apply for Canadian permanent residence, you have to go through the express entry program. It is the main program for permanent residency in Canada. We also have like other ways to get permanent residency, but at the Okay, I'm back. Sorry, guys. Looks like my internet is messing up a bit today. Hmm. Okay. So what I was saying about the English proficiency or French proficiency exams here is Canada expects you to already speak one of these languages before you move here. And what I recommend for people is going through this process can be expensive. Even registering for IELTS is not cheap. So what I do always recommend for people is don't just go and pay and do your IELTS before you come and check your scores. Try and get your scores first before you invest, before you even go and do your IELTS. So in this case, if you do not have IELTS general test yet, what I do recommend you do here is just enter any scores. But you should also know that whatever scores you are entering here is what is going to determine the points or the scores you are going to get. So let's say I choose higher scores here. I'm going to get more points. And as a result, my score will be higher. But if you choose lower points too, your score is going to be lower here. But the real points you're actually going to use for the express entry is whatever you get when you take the actual test. So when I come here, I try to pick, let's say, medium scores, something I know is realistic. If you ask me about IELTS, I would say IELTS isn't that difficult. I've been through it and I know how it is. So I know it's not that difficult. At least the general test isn't that difficult. There are most parts of the general test that are similar to what they do in academic. And so far as I am concerned, it is not that difficult. I used just a week to prepare for it and I got an 8 overall. So, but I'm not expecting everybody to be like me. So let's just say you have just medium scores. So we're just going to use that. If you do the actual test, you can still come back and do this again. So which language test did you take for your official language? These are the language tests that Canada accepts. CELPIP G, IELTS, PTE Core, TEF Canada, and TCF Canada. For most of them, I've never even heard of them before. I know of the CELPIP, I know of IELTS, and I know many people actually use IELTS. So I'm going to choose IELTS here in this case. And if you do IELTS, we have speaking, listening, reading, and writing is in 4 sections. And you need, when you, after writing your IELTS, you get points for each of these. Generally speaking, the speaking and writing parts are, should I say, more difficult. Why? Because for listening, you just choose your answers. And if you are right, no one can mark you down. For reading, you just use your answers. If you are right, no one can mark you down. But for speaking, it is in a form of, should I say, an interview. So someone is asking you questions and you are just answering the person. You are having more like an interview with the person. And it is the person who is now going to determine whether he thinks you got high marks or low marks, whether he thinks you were fluent enough or not. So as a result, it is a little bit subjective. So if whoever conducted your interview thinks, oh yeah, you were very, very, very good, you were fluent and all, they can give you a high score. If they don't think so, you can get maybe a little bit like a lower score. And as a result, when you are choosing your points for speaking and writing is also like an essay. And as we all know, an essay, someone is now going to mark it and determine how many points you have. So as a result, for speaking and writing, they have different grading for it, at least when it comes to express entry. So with express entry, whether you got a 7.5 or a 9, you still get the same points. So when you are going through this calculator, They don't ask whether you got an 8 or 9 or 7 or whatever. They just, the highest, where you get your highest scores is 7.5 to 9. So even if you got a 7.5, you do not have to be disheartened. You still get the highest points when it comes to speaking. So I'm going to say maybe I got a 7.5. And for listening, is 8.5 to 9. This is what I was trying to talk about. When you go to speaking, 7.5 is good enough. You get the higher scores. But when it comes to listening, you need to get 8.5 to get the higher scores there. So let's say I got an 8 in listening. And reading is this reading to the higher scores there is 8.0. So let's say I got an 8 in reading too. That's actually the highest points I got there. And for writing, let's say I got another 7.5. And for writing, as I said, is similar to the speaking. 7.5, with 7.5, you get the highest marks. So now I am done answering these questions. And they ask, do you have other language results? If you are also fluent in French, you are bilingual, and as a result, you have another test results for your French proficiency exam, you can just choose yes here and choose so they, for French, they have TEF Canada, TCF Canada, and then you choose which of them you have and enter your results. So in this case, let's say we are only proficient in English, we do not have a French proficiency exam, so not applicable. Now they are asking you about your work experience. So one mistake people commonly make when it comes to work experience is the wordings. You should know this is a Canadian application. So if you hear anything like foreign work experience, this foreign work experience means whatever you have outside Canada, including your country. And when you hear, and then they have Canadian work experience, which is what you have in Canada. So the first question they ask you under work experience is, in the last 10 years, how many years of skilled work experience in Canada do you have? The key word here is in Canada do you have? So as I said earlier, I am going to assume whoever is doing this application is outside Canada. They've never been to Canada before, and as a result, they cannot have work experience in Canada, which was my situation when I was applying. So I'm going to choose none or less than a year. And the next question they ask is, in the last 10 years, how many total years of foreign skilled work experience do you have? The key word here is foreign. And as I said, foreign means outside Canada, including your country or your home country. So in this case, let's say I have been working for 3 years. You get the highest points if you have 3 or more years. They don't care whether you have 10 years experience, you're still going to get the same points anyways. So 3 or more years gives you the highest points here. But if you have 2 years or 1 year work experience, you can also put it here and it's also going to work. Except you will not be getting as much points as someone who has 3 or more years work experience. This is why the highest points for age is 29. Because they are expecting that by 29 you should have been done with school, probably be working, and you at least have 3 years or more work experience. So let's say we have 3 or more years work experience, so we choose that here. And the next question they ask is, do you have a certificate of qualification from a Canadian province, territory, or federal body? This is not a provincial nominee. This is the one thing you have to note. This is not a provincial nominee. So a certificate of qualification lets people work in some skilled trades. So let's say I am a teacher and I have registered in, say, Ontario, even though I am outside Canada. You can still go through the process and register, go through the certification process and register for a province. like as a teacher or a nurse or all of those. We all know these jobs need to be certified. So let's say I've gone through the process and been certified, but I don't have my PR yet. I am now trying to apply. In this case, since you have that certificate, you can say yes here. But I am assuming we don't have that. So I will choose no. And then the next question, number 8, is do you have a valid job offer supported by LMIA? I think I already mentioned this earlier. Previously, if you did have a valid job offer supported by LMIA, you'd get additional points. It seems they've not updated this tool yet, so it still makes it seem as if you're going to get additional points. But now you don't really get any additional points. Whether you get a job or not, you don't get additional points here. So what you do is you choose, let's say I don't have a job offer. I don't have an LMIA job offer yet. So I choose no. I mean, how many people actually have it? So yeah, no. Do you have a nomination certificate from a province or territory? As I said, even if you go through a province, that's provincial nomination, you will still end up coming back to the main federal express entry pool. You still have to go back and start an express entry application. So this is for someone who has been through the provincial nomination and has been nominated by their province, and as a result been issued a certificate by their province. So you choose yes here. If you choose yes, automatically you get 600 points, which means automatically you are going to be given an invitation in the next draw, because even as of now, the draw is normally around I think 500. It's not really gotten to 600 yet. So if you have a provincial nomination and you get that additional 600, automatically you are going to get an invitation to apply. But let's say we do not have that nomination yet. We've not gone through that process, because not many people even get the nomination anyway. So we are going to choose no. We don't have a provincial nomination. So no. So number 10 is, do you or your spouse or common law partner, that's if they are coming with you to Canada, have at least one brother or sister living in Canada who is a citizen or permanent resident? So in this case, if you have a sibling here in Canada who is 18 years and above, and yeah, the requirements is the person must be 18 years old or older, related to you or your partner by blood, marriage, common law partnership, or adoption, have a parent in common with you or your partner, a brother or sister is related to you by blood, biologically, adoption, or marriage, that's your stepbrother or your stepsister. If you choose yes, you are going to also get additional points, but I think you will get like 15 points here. So let's say we don't have any sibling in Canada, so we are going by no. So now it's time for your reality check to know what your score is. So now we have our results here. So now they are going to break down all the points for you to see where you got this and that, and probably where you can improve. So under core or human capital factors, your age, since we chose 29, and I told you that's where you get the highest points, and that is 110. Level of education, we chose 2 postgraduate certificates or diplomas or degrees, and that gave me 128 points. Official languages, that's the English proficiency exam, I got 133 points from there. So in total for core or human capital factors, I got 371. For spouse factors, since I never had a spouse, since I chose I was single, that is 0. Skill transferability factors, education, official language proficiency and education, I got 50 there. Canadian work experience and education, 0, because I don't have it, and as a result, that is my subtotal there is 50. Foreign work experience, as I said, any job is work experience you have outside Canada, That is an additional 50 here. So in total, for my skill transferability factors, I got 100. And then they go to additional points. So additional points includes provincial nomination, your job offer. Job offer actually have to be taken out now because now you still not get any points anyways. But I guess they are going to update this later. Study in Canada, we didn't have any uh, program in Canada, and as a result, you go 0 there. Sibling in Canada, no. French language skills, no. So I got 0 for the additional points section. So in total, I got 471. 471. And this is why a lot of people keep saying currently, as the express entry is, it is difficult for people to get enough points for it. And this is what is going to lead me into talking about the 6 categories for express entry. Previously, 471 would have been a good mark, and you could easily get your invitation if you applied with this profile. But now you may not, because currently the points are normally around like 500-ish. Yeah, 500 and this, 500 and that. So it's not really easy for you to get that 500. What is working now is rather you belonging to any of the 6 points here. If you do belong to any of the 6 categories, then it does help you to be able to get a nomination, even if you still have your 400 and something points. And okay. Let me see if my sound is working on YouTube. I'm not sure if okay, I think it's working now. Yeah. So I am going to also show you where we normally check the draws. Whenever there is a draw, you can search for it yourself. And normally, whenever if you've been actually researching into this, when there are draws, you'll be able to get a notification, and or maybe it'll pop up in your news. But for people who don't really follow it, especially if, let's say, this is the first time you're actually coming to follow this, it means you're not going to be getting any such news populating in your search engine. So you'll have to search for it yourself. So I'm going to, as always, I'm going to Google, and this is what am I even going to search for? Express entry draw, and I think they call it the let me see if I see it. I'll see. I'll know. I actually have the link to it, and it has to be about, okay, let me search for it first on my phone before I get to it here. I have the link here, so I'm going to see exactly the term to search for before I go in. Yeah. Mm, 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 mm. Yeah, ministerial instructions. Yes. Yes. Ministerial instructions, express entry. And with this, yes. So if you set for ministerial instructions for express entry, you are able to get all the draws that they've had. We are now in 2025, and they've not had any draw in 2025 yet. I mean, we're only 3 days in 2025 anyways. and share this tab instead. Yeah. So this is it. When you search for ministerial instructions, that is what pops up. And let me stop sharing the screen and share again. I got a notification that the audio is not working, so I'm going to try and do that again for my YouTube channel. So I'm going to share the screen again. Sorry for that. Ministerial instructions respecting the express entry. Yes. If you are on my YouTube live, will you be able to let me know if the sound is coming? Oh, sorry about that, Amanda. Can someone on YouTube comment and let me know if the sound is okay this time? Okay, okay. Thanks, Mustafa. Okay, good. Now let's go back to it. So if you set for the ministerial instructions on express entry, you okay, let me go back so that it doesn't. Yeah, so I set for ministerial instructions express entry on Google. And once you do that, this is what comes. So as I said, you have to look at the website before you click it. So if you look at the website, canada.ca, that is the website for IRCC or Anything Canada official website. So you click on it and it just opens for you. Okay. Looks like my internet has been a bit slow today, but I hope it takes us through this whole thing. So the last time they had a draw was December 16, 2024. And that was a provincial nominee through the provincial nominee program, and they issued 1,085 invitations. And the score they had there was 727. As I said, if someone applies through provincial nominee, they automatically get 600 points. So, and this isn't like what the total they're going, that is an additional points. It's added to what they had previously. So let's say in our case, where we have 471 and we apply for provincial nominee and gets nominated, we get an additional 600, meaning we already getting over 1,000 points here. So if we had an application in by December 16th, we would have gotten an invitation. On December 3rd, they also had one, and that was through the French language proficiency. This is what leads me to the six categories I was talking about. Before COVID, Canada only used to have the federal express entry, and then that is it. They didn't really care about categories much. So far as you have enough points, you get invited, and that was exactly what some of us had. So like me, for instance, that was the time I applied for it. So when I was doing mine, I didn't have to belong to any sort of category. But after COVID, Canada got exposed. Our system got exposed. Then they realized that yes, we've been bringing permanent residents in. We've been bringing people in to come and work in Canada. But we've realized that even though we are bringing in people, we are not really filling the sectors or areas where we really need people. So during COVID time, we realized we didn't have enough health workers. If you go to long-term care and retirement homes, we didn't even have PSWs, and PSW is a certificate program just for 1 year. That means we should be able to have more people for that, but we didn't even have enough PSWs, and that was a problem. We realized in our hospitals we didn't have enough nurses. We realized that we didn't even have enough people in construction sector to be building our homes. We realized that if you go to places like Quebec and other French cities or provinces, we didn't have enough people working in those places just because we don't just because they don't speak French. They are French provinces, and as a result, they expect people there to be speaking French, but they weren't getting enough French speakers there. They realized that a lot of sectors were lacking, even though we had enough people. We had more people in Canada. So as a result, Canada kind of changed their whole approach and introduced these 6 categories. So if you belong to any of these 6 categories, it made it easier for you to now gain permanent residency, because you do not necessarily have to get as much points as everybody else is getting. And I already have a video on my channel that talks about all of these six sectors. And I'm trying to get all the 6 sectors here. I do know there's one for, as you see here, there's one for healthcare occupations. There's another for French language proficiency. There's trade occupations, so that's 3. There's I know there's one for agric and fisheries. Yeah, so these are what they've had recent. These are the draws they've had I think since July 30. But if you want to see older ones, we will be able to go through the pages and see all that they've been having. These go as far back as May, April. Yeah, and we also have one for STEM. We also have one for transport occupation. Yes, and agriculture and agri-food occupations. So these are the 6 sectors. 1, French proficiency. 2, healthcare. 3, STEM. 4, transport occupations. 5, agri-food occupations. And what was the 6th one? Yeah, there are 6 of them. I think we've seen all of them, but I've forgotten the last one. Yeah, so there are 6 of them. So how this works is, let's say I submit an express entry application, and I have a degree in, let's say, nursing. I have work experience in the health sector or the health sector. So I've been a nurse for, let's say, 3 or more years in my country. And if you check my certificates, you realize I also have a degree in nursing. It means I belong to this health sector. So when they are choosing people with healthcare background, automatically I am going to be part of these people. It's not something that you choose. It is based on your profile. So if you belong to any of these, so if you belong to any of these sectors, automatically they just put you in. And let's say instead of English IELTS proficiency exam, I chose French, and my first language is French. It means I now fall under the French language proficiency. Let's say I have work experience and educational qualifications in agric and agri-food occupations. It means when they are having a draw in this sector, you get to be put in there. So if we are going by what we see here, you see in March 25th, 2024, they had a draw that was a general draw. They had a general draw. And with this, they invited 1,980 people. And the score they had was 524. This means at that time, anyone who had applied for express entry and had a score of 524 would automatically receive an invitation to apply for permanent residence. So I see Bridget Ade was asking, please, how do you apply for the PNP to get the 600 points? Okay, so I will answer that question in a minute. Let me just finish with this one first. So if you had an application in and you had a minimum score of 524. It doesn't matter whether your score was 524 or 600 or 800 or 1000. So far as you had at least 524 on March 25th, you were going to get an invitation. But that also means people like the profile I used here who got 471 will not be invited. And this is the situation we have now. The scores are always high. So it makes it difficult for regular people to be able to get in. But right after that, on the March 25th, March 26th, they also had another one for French language proficiency. And with this, they invited 1,500 people. And check the scores here. 388. So this means if I had a French, if let's say my first language was French, and as a result, I fell under the French language proficiency, even if I had like 388, which is even far less than we have with the profile I used and got 471. Even if you had just 388, automatically you do get an invitation to apply for permanent residency. This is why I am talking about belonging to any of the 6 categories. With just 388, you get invited just because you speak French. But someone else with 471 or 473 who doesn't belong to any of these 6 categories will not be invited. And this is because they need people in French. Let's say for someone who also is in the STEM occupations, they had a draw on April 11, 2024, and the minimum score they needed was 491, which is far less than the 500 plus that they normally require. So I am going back to the current draws. So as we see here, the last one they had was December 16, but before that, they had another one for French language proficiency. That's December 3, 2024. And the points they needed was 466. So let's say if the profile I used was fluent in French, was a French speaker, it means the person with 471 should have gotten invited for this, and they invited 800 people. So if you check the recent draws they've had, this was provincial nominee, this was French, provincial nominee, healthcare occupations, Canadian experience class, provincial nominee, French. So if you go through it, as at July 30, 2024, I don't see any general draw. That means if you do not fall within any of these 6 categories or provincial nominees, you do not get an invitation. Let me try and see the last time they had a general draw. So the last time they had a general draw was on April 23rd, 2024. And the scores required or the marks required then was 529. Yes, 529. That was the scores they required then. But if you do belong to any of these 6 categories, it makes it much easier to be able to receive an invitation, even if you have lower scores. And so since we are done with this side, and we're also done with the scores, now I'm going to go to the express entry itself, the main thing we plan on doing today. So with the express entry, we do have various programs. There's actually 3 of them. So as always, I'm going to start from Google so that you'll be able to follow through. So I go to Google, I search for express entry. Share this tab. Yeah. So I search for express entry and immigrate through express entry. And as always, check the website canada.ca. If you go down, you're going to see many other websites, CIC News and the likes, that are not Canada's official page. I keep repeating this because recently there's been a lot of people who are unfortunately being exposed to scammers. We have scammers creating their own websites and charging people and all of that. And sometimes it's not scammers. Most times people also go through some immigration lawyer websites thinking it is the official website. And by the time they realize they've already paid some amounts, and yeah, that is quite unfortunate. So I try to take you through the official Canada website instead. So immigrate through express entry. So this on this side, they try to explain everything to you, try to take you through the process and how it works. But I rather want to take you to the main thing, so immigration and citizenship, Canada. So here you go to immigrate. You want to immigrate to Canada, not visit, immigrate. So you click here, and then you get to see the various ways of immigrating to Canada. I think I've actually had a whole video on this where I explained each of these ones. But well, let's still go through it anyway. So we want to go through the express entry. But since I am here, I'm also going to explain the provincial nominee as Bridget was asking previously. So Bridget, I'm going to answer your question now. So for the provincial nominee, that is whereby you are, instead of applying for the federal express entry itself, okay, looks like on TikTok I lost the connection too a while ago, and I just realized it. Mm, okay, so I am now starting the live on TikTok too. Yeah. So provincial nominee is basically for people who so with that you apply to a province. The one I am talking about, express entry, is the federal government. So with that, if you go through that, you get to live anywhere in Canada that you want. But if you apply through the provincial nomination program, it means you are applying to a specific province. So if you apply to this province, you are telling them you want to move to their province and live and work there. So the province will go through your application and they will decide if they need your services. Let's say the province needs maybe more construction workers, and you tell them, yes, you are a constructor, you have experience, education, and work experience in the construction sector, and as a result, they may pick you. Every province have their own needs. It's not a one size fits all. Some provinces needs healthcare workers, some provinces needs people in trades, some provinces needs people in a lot of other factors are Greek, and some need like people who speak French and all of that. So depending on your profile, you apply to the province. Normally, you can just go to the province's website and go through their programs and see which of them you qualify for. And also, when you are applying for the main express entry, it gets to a section where they ask you to choose, I think, about 2 or 3 provinces that you plan on living in. So let's say you choose, let's say, Ontario. And after applying, you don't actually get enough points for the federal express entry. But since you choose Ontario, Ontario have access to your application. Then they will go through your application and decide if they want you. Let's say you had points, but the points weren't really enough for the federal express entry, but it's okay enough for them. And as a result, they can invite you to apply for provincial nomination. And another means is by going through the province's website yourself and going to their programs, and then you decide which of them you think you qualify for. So if you see which of them you think you qualify for, you can also apply to it. That is how it works. And normally from my understanding, when you apply, they will take your documents and you have to pay for it because it is another process. So you pay for it, and when everything is done, they will send you that provincial nominee certificate, their nomination certificate. And then, as I said, you still have to go to express entry. So you go there and then fill the application, and there will be a section where they will ask if you do have that nomination certificate. So you choose yes, and automatically you get an additional 600 points to your score, your express entry score. But they do know you are coming through provincial nomination, and as a result, they are going to you'd have to move to that province. That is one thing with the provincial nomination. When you get to Canada, you have to live in that province. One thing though is there is no um there is no specific number of years you have to live in that province. There's nothing like a law that says you have to live in this province for 5 years, or you have to live in this province for 3 years, or whatever. So in general, most people just take it to be 2 or 3 years. And for especially people who come through maybe a specific program, like let's say I am a nurse and I apply through Alberta. I'm using this example because I shared an opportunity in Alberta where they were looking for nurses, and I think it's still available, and they go through it time after time. So you can just go through it and apply. So Alberta needs nurses for their rural areas, mind you, their rural areas, and that is what their program is about. So they will not be bringing you to come and live in a big city. When you come, they will give you a job as a nurse, and they will send you to one of their rural areas, their smaller communities, where normally